everyone. Welcome back to the Be Confident online conference. I am Ande Anderson, tour guide of Enlightenment Village and co-founder of Avaya. And my co-host Tammy Lahman and I are so excited to have you back. And as I've mentioned before, our mission for this conference is to create a really loving, a really fun, playful, supportive community for you to learn methods and tools and strategies to build your self-confidence so you can achieve your goals in your business if you have one, or in your job, or your relationships, and ultimately as in your life as a whole. So in this session, our guest is going to be talking about how to step into your true power by unlocking your intuition. And that guest is Dr. Joy Martina. Hi, Joy.
Hi.
It's nice to have you here. Thanks for being with us. I want to tell everyone a little bit about you and your work, and then we'll dive into some questions here. So Joy is the psychic psychologist, and she is the author of Amazon bestseller, How to Use Your Intuition to Change Your Life. And she shares invaluable information from her decades of research into the topic of intuition and the subconscious brain. So you obviously talk a lot about intuition. So let's start there. What is intuition to you?
Well, intuition is the highest form of intelligence, actually. And it's not just me saying that. People like Albert Einstein or even Forbes magazine have recognized that intuition is a form of wisdom that goes beyond just knowledge, because it's actually the driving force that makes those decisions in life. So if we are guided by intuition, we will make not only wiser decisions, but we will have the ability to filter information in the right way. Because right now we have this bombardment of information going on for our brains. So just 25 years ago, we were being bombarded every single second by 2 million pieces of information. Nowadays, it's 11 million pieces of information. But that is so much information because, our brain can only handle 126 pieces, like these straws. Right? 126 pieces versus 11 million. So what that does is that for many of us, it means that we get totally overwhelmed because we no longer know which information is actually valuable to me and how do I make wise choices.
I love that. And I'm so glad that you mentioned, yes, how things have changed for us and the amount of crazy amounts of stimuli that we have in front of us every day, all the time. And, how that can affect our decision-making and everything. The distractions and, all the stuff that's around us. So you mentioned, things like Forbes magazine and all that, obviously, touting intuition as something we need to pay attention to, and I think there has also been over the years, right, lots of talk about, intuition being something magical or woo-woo or, something like that. So would you say there's been kind of like a paradigm shift in the way people look at intuition?
I see we're in it. I don't think it's happened yet, but I do see that many people are actually recognizing that intuition is not just something woo-woo and distinctly female, but it's an innate way of perceiving information. So when we look at Myers-Briggs, that is the tool that Fortune 500 companies use to this day when hiring people. They recognize intuition as one of the 4 primary factors in psychology. So people like Barack Obama, Elon Musk are all highly intuitive people. So I think it's more about recognizing what intuition is and how to hone it so that we can make use of it rather than putting it into a box where we're feeling separated from it, or it has to be something that we're gifted with, which is a whole lot of BS. It's just a belief system.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I love it if you would dive a little bit into confidence and kind of the role that maybe intuition plays into confidence, since this conference is all about, building our self-confidence. So like what is confidence to you, and how does intuition tie into that conversation?
Well, I would say my spontaneous answer would be is when I'm tuned into my intuition, I have the confidence in my decision making. Then I know that whatever I am deciding right now, whatever choice I'm making, and if we look at life, it's all about making choices, right? If I look at the life that I have right now, then I will have to admit that the life is the way because of the choices that I made in the past, whether they were conscious or unconscious. And if I claim that responsibility in life, I will have to claim not only my right back to make those choices, but also to recognize that depending on the choices that I make in the now, I am actually creating my future. So I want to feel 100% confident that the choices that I'm making are right. And what I've noticed in decades of working with people really on a very intimate level, you know, as a coach and trainer, I get to see all the stuff, right? I've seen that when we feel really unhappy and depressed and overwhelmed, it's because we've lost confidence in ourselves. We've lost confidence in the path that we have right now. We might not like what we have right now, and we're making that mean that we're not good enough. And when we're tuned into our intuition, we can start building that confidence muscle again, and we start trusting our choices and that feeling that we have when we meet someone, that kind of gut feeling, maybe it is, that visceral feeling it often is in the body. Maybe it's a message that you hear. We all have intuition, but sometimes we override it because we haven't really learned to listen to it.
So what suggestions do you have for people on how to, right, separate out the mind chatter, the peanut gallery, all this stuff, the fears, all that kind of things from our actual intuition?
Yeah, well, it's easy. I've defined 5 steps that I've noticed we have to take when we want to tune into our intuition and strengthen that, because it really is about starting a dialogue with an unconscious part of us. And for that, step 1 is really to step out of all that buzz and tune into yourself. Now, I know that's not rocket science, but when do we really do that? When do we take time to really sit in silence, or sit and listen to some beautiful music and focus on our breath? Anything to get off a screen, get out of the chatter of other people, and start tuning into self. That's step 1. Then step 2 is really about learning to say no in a graceful way. I think a lot of us have become a part of the sheeple, part of the pleasing sort of mentality, that we've been maybe trained and conditioned to always focus on what others need or want from us. And when we do that, we can lose track of what we really want. And that means that we're maybe living the life of, I don't know, our parents or what other people think is a good idea for us. And we've lost the ability to say, you know, no, that's not what I want. So I teach my clients there's honestly only a hell yes or a hell no. There's not much in between. It's more about, do I have the courage to say no to something that even if everybody's saying I should be doing it, if I know in my heart of hearts that that is not what I should be doing, you have to listen. And I think we all know moments when we didn't listen, or we wish we had.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Oh, yes.
So that takes me to step 3, and that is learning to forgive and to release joyfully. I think something has always fascinated me when working with people, and also with myself, right, is that we have this whole mysticism about letting go. And I think maybe it's just also the way that we say you have to let it go, that instinctively makes me at least want to hold it tight. But when I say I can release something, I can see that whatever happened in the past, and usually we hold on to past painful experiences, we can get really attached to them, right? And then we're kind of living in the past, and we're allowing that past to define us. And that step of really learning to clear your past and say, listen, I don't want those tethers anymore. I'm going to forgive. I'm going to forgive myself. I'm going to grab those lessons that I learned, and I'm going to move on. That's step number 4, or 3. And then we can actually only get to the step 4, which is that stage where you can own your desires. It's fascinating sometimes when I talk to my clients in their first consult, and I say, well, what do you really want? And there'll be this silence. And I say, well, you must have thought about this. What's your goal? What do you want? And that already can be such a struggle for some of us because we're not used to owning our desires. We might even feel that our desires are too out there. It's too big. But I'm telling you, they have to be big, because if they're not, and we're not owning them, we can feel totally, bored with life. It kind of gets very flat. So that's the 4th step. And that takes us to the final step. But that is really, I call it tap into the universe. Learn to see yourself as part of a bigger whole. We're all particles of energy, honestly. And as these particles of energy, we're going through this life, we're trying to do our best and learn our lessons. And when we learn to see ourselves as part of that huge network, we can get something that I think we need to thrive in life. And that is, we have unshakable faith. We know that the universe has got our back. That highest self, that whatever name you want to give it, that thing that created you, that thing that's guiding your life, that should be, you know, your heart, that's where you hear it, right? That is never going to really drop you. So I think a lot of the stress that we're experiencing, we're literally creating for ourselves by being tuned into everything else but ourselves, not taking the time, then saying yes to things that we actually should say no to, and forgetting that we are pure potential. Whatever we believe we can achieve, we will achieve. Might not always be exactly the way we want it or that particular specific thing, but we will always move forward if we just keep moving.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for breaking that down into 5 steps. And all of those were very, easy to grasp and understand and, apply in our lives. So I love it. So here's a question. I know a lot of our people watching right now are either entrepreneurs or they're, one of their desires is to make more money, right? To be more successful in their business and, or maybe their job or whatever it is, right? So could you dive a little bit into that? So let's talk, right, intuition, right? If we listen to our intuition, that builds our confidence in decision-making and all that kind of stuff. So how does that kind of tie into our ability to make more money?
Oh, I love that question. I would say in every single piece. I'm an entrepreneur myself. I guide a team. I need to know, who do I hire? Who do I hire for which position? What are their strengths and weaknesses? Everybody who I've met in a hiring conversation is always going to show you their best selves. And I've made lots of mistakes in the past by not listening to my intuition because I was kind of stunned by their brilliant, performance or by their brilliant CV. But I had that feeling and I should have followed that feeling. And, it took me actually together with my husband to set up a whole list of writing down those moments when we didn't listen to intuition and we went ahead with it anyway, and to say, okay, how much money did that cost us? From hiring the wrong person to investing into the wrong marketing strategy, into, all those decisions that I think not only do we have to make every single day, but it's the ability of making those decisions quickly that contribute to our success in business, right? Mm-hmm. So if you ask people who are really, at the top of their zenith, what took you to that place, they will tell you, I made decisions quickly and I stood with them. I went with them. I never doubted or second guessed myself. If it didn't work out, I failed forward and onwards we went, right? So I think having that unshakable faith is something that we need to want to move ahead in life and not end up feeling depressed and anxious, which sadly a lot of entrepreneurs are feeling. And if I talk to my clients who are all entrepreneurs, their main issues are insomnia, trouble sleeping, not sleeping enough, feeling frazzled, feeling overwhelmed, feeling anxious, many on pharmaceutical drugs. I can see where it's going, and the solution would really be so simple. Just take time, take 20 minutes out of your day. I know that sounds a lot, but start with 5 minutes and take that time to really breathe, to I call it meditate. Maybe it's for you lying down in the grass underneath a tree and listening to beautiful music. Maybe it's listening to one of my meditations or brain trainings or somebody else's. But think about what you're feeding your brain with. And is it really taking you to where you want to go? Or are you more mulling around anxious thoughts and all this self-judgment that definitely is not getting you to where you want, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, I encourage you to get my book. I've put all the resources in there. There are lots of free stuff. I've made it so easy because I know that our brain needs different channels. Some of us are visual, some of us are more auditive, others need to feel things. I've tried to really address all different ways to tune into intuition because I think it's such a life skill. It should be taught in schools.
Absolutely. Yes. We're a little far off in that department for sure. So one of the things we're doing as a part of this conference is we're challenging people to take on daily challenges, with these interviews. And I encourage you, based on what you just said, right? Like take that 20 minutes, right? Take it today. Whether it's you're listening to Joy's meditation or, you're just silent or whatever you're what did you get out of that? Right. How
Right.
did it feel? And that's an amazing step to take for everybody watching right now.
Yeah, but the main message there being follow your pleasure. Stop following your pain. Start following your pleasure by creating really a date for yourself. Every day, 20 minutes where you do something that just gives you pleasure. Be that indulgent. And then I'd like
Yes.
to share another tip, because with that pleasure idea and the pain idea, I know what will come up for most. For most will come up the kind of the fear, oh, but what happens then? What if I do that, right? So I want to share a really powerful point you can tap. They're actually 2 points. They're right here underneath your collarbones. And these acupressure points are the end points of the kidney meridians. So you can start tapping them either with 2 hands or with 1 hand. It looks kind of graceful. And as you tap these meridians, you're literally de-stressing your kidney meridian. Now, meridians are like highways in our bodies. And when our kidney meridian gets stressed, it gets our adrenals stressed, right? And how many are suffering maybe from one version or the other of maybe adrenal fatigue, of kind of feeling tired all day? If you tap this, you're shifting the body, the energy in the body, and you're now going to make it even more powerful, because I'm all about brain hacks. You're now going to use this kind of limitation of the mind, which is that the conscious mind can only focus on so much, right? 126 pieces of information. And now that you're already kind of making your conscious mind work hard by tapping, right, and listening to me, if you now say something, you're giving it as a command to your unconscious mind, which is actually running the show. So speak with me. I love and accept myself. Just say it to yourself. I love and accept myself, even when I feel afraid, when I feel scared of taking time for myself, when I feel fearful of what others may say, when I think I don't have that time. All these fears, I love and accept myself. And then breathe. And I love and accept myself when I now choose to love myself, to take time for myself, and to know that I've got this. Okay, and then just notice what happens in your body, and notice what happens in your mind. And this now is this perfect time when you can focus on what you actually want, rather than feeling the fear. So it's kind of part of feeling the fear and doing it anyway, but rather than just kind of forcing your way over it with willpower, which doesn't work in my idea, you're literally giving the command to your unconscious mind to say, listen, it's okay. Even if we feel fearful right now, it's just a small part of you. And you're making that choice, because when we say, I now choose, it's really a command. It's way more powerful than saying, I wish I could, I would, right? I choose to.
Yeah. Well, like that is like, it's, to me, that like brings in personal responsibility, right? Like I'm choosing this. It's up to me, like if I want this, I can get it, and it's up to me to get it, so I love it. Thank you. Thank you for taking us through that. So one other question for you, and this kind of relates to something you said a little bit ago, is around like results. So let's say someone has a goal for something, whether it's a business goal or a personal relationship goal or something like that, but they're not, right? They're very clear. They're following their intuition, let's say, but the results aren't actually turning out quite like they think they should, right? So, what are your thoughts on that, I guess? What are your suggestions?
I have 2 thoughts on that. One is that when we set a goal, right, just because we've consciously set that goal, it doesn't mean that huge part of our brain, the unconscious mind, actually agrees with that goal. So I'll give you an example from weight loss. Say you're 100 pounds overweight and you want to lose weight, and you know what you should do, right? You should exercise more. You should maybe eat less. You should do this. You should do that. You know it. And you will start out doing it with consciously, this is what I'm going to do. What will happen? There'll be, I don't know, the latest day 3, but I should think usually earlier, there's something will happen in your life where you will feel emotional. You'll feel triggered. You'll feel thrown out of your balance. And that usually happens quickly if we're surrounded by other people and we have, I don't know, workmates and stuff happening, right? And in that moment of weakness, what will you do? You will fall right back into your old habits if you were overriding them with willpower. Now, what we need to know is that our unconscious mind is filled with stuff that we don't know. That's why it's called unconscious, right? And what it's filled with is basically like I don't know, I call it like a garbage can of experiences, of lessons, and anything that happened to you, this life, past life, anything. Right? So when we, for instance, want to lose weight, and we maybe grew up in a family where everybody was overweight, we might have as a kid heard, oh, everybody in our family is overweight. We all have big bones. We all have diabetes. This is just the way we are. You might have learned habits like eating really quickly because your family did that. God knows what's in your unconscious mind that is actually fearful of you reaching that goal. You might have ideas in your mind that you've got to eat your plate clean, otherwise you might starve to death. Right. You don't know consciously. And that's where brain training is so powerful, because, you know, after working decades with people, I know the basic fears. I know the basic limiting beliefs that people have. We're not that ingenious. They're kind of 16 limiting beliefs that will ruin your life, right? And in my programs, I always make sure that I address every single one with hypnosis, with NLP, with all the things that I know, because I know that with time, and that's where we get to how long does it take to reach that goal, really depends on how much stuff can you clear to get congruent with that goal on all levels. And I know that if you listen to a brain training that's focused on one very specific goal, then within 90 days, your brain will have created new synapses, new pathways to make new habits. Now, that's how long it usually takes. But if you want to shortcut that, it really depends on how much effort you're willing to put into keeping the focus on that goal and doing everything it really takes to get there in the time, and having unshakable faith. That's the part two. Really trusting that, you know, if it's meant to be, it will come. And my only job is to stay in that space of holding the space to be my perfect self, so that when this comes, I'm ready for it. And that's why I call it, you know, really flexing that unshakable faith muscle, and knowing that, you know, the way it comes, I don't get attached to that. I am very specific on the outcomes that I want, but I am not attached to how it comes to me. I'm not saying I wish to be, I don't know, a multi-billionaire and I'm going to have to win it in the lottery. No. Whichever way is good and graceful, may it come, right? Right. Sometimes we can block our own good by being so attached in, you know, this, but it has to come this way, right?
Right. Yeah, no, and that's a really good point for everybody watching right now, that, yeah, if you're working on your confidence and tapping into your intuition, and, you know, the results aren't coming the way that you thought they were, awesome, cool. It's right. Like we always say, like, you don't perceive your own best interests, right? Like we don't necessarily know how it should happen, what's the best way for it to happen, but it's happening. So that's cool.
Yeah. And you know, it goes back to what all energy. On an energetic level, the thoughts you think out, right, are creating that vortex for that reality that you want. So the more thoughts you send out that are aligned with that reality, the stronger that is going to get. Mm-hmm. So you're going to automatically attract it. It's more about staying aware and in that space, rather than shortcutting yourself and sabotaging yourself. I think we're our biggest enemies.
Certainly are.
We're experts at that.
So let's talk a little bit about emotions, because I know that you tie emotions into, you know, our ability to either be listening to our intuition and or not. So how do emotions tie into this conversation?
Well, I love emotions because emotions make us human. And, you know, I do crazy stuff like channeling and, you know, connecting to spirit. And I've heard from many of my guides and helpers that is what makes us so unique as humans, is that we have emotions. It's just so interesting how we sometimes just don't learn how to deal with them. So we either can suppress them, or we over-exaggerately indulge in them. And it's difficult sometimes to find a balance. Again, I think we're just not taught. But once we realize that our emotions are actually our gifts, they let us know if we're aligned with who we are or not. Because if you're unhappy, it's not because other people are doing stuff to you. It's because you're not aligned with who you are. You're doing something that's against who you actually are, right? And if you do that repeatedly, you're going to end up a very unhappy person. So when we're connected to our intuition, we're actually finding out about who am I? and I'm letting go of all these ideas of who I should be, so I can actually, be my authentic self. And I feel that is the most powerful thing we can teach ourselves and others. And emotions are just there to show us, wow, there's an energy in motion in my body. That's all it is. And the stories I'm telling myself about those emotions, the memories those emotions bring up, are actually just showing me unhealed stuff in myself. So that's why I love all this tapping. And there are many different techniques and tricks that I can share there, but that would, explode the time frame on this call. But, that they're so simple. I teach them to 3-year-olds. You can do it on animals. It works because you're shifting energy and you're giving whatever's happening to you or whatever you have created a new meaning, rather than make it mean that you're worthless or you're not good enough or that. You're saying, okay, interesting, let's go.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I love it. Thank you. So here's another question for you as it relates to confidence. I think a lot of us, I would say probably statistically, maybe more women than men, compare ourselves to others, right? Compare ourselves to women.
Do you think women do it more than men?
I guess I don't know, but let's say people in general, compare themselves to other people, right?
For sure.
He's, thinner than me, or she has, more beautiful hair than I do, or she's more successful, or he has a better trained dog, whatever it is, right? So, I think this plays into confidence in so many ways and can really, jeopardize, I think, our confidence. So what suggestions do you have for people who are struggling with that, like comparing themselves to others?
Stop doing it. Just quit it. It's like the number one way to get yourself real unhappy, because the true honest truth is you have no friggin' idea. You have no idea what's going on behind the facade that you are seeing. And remember, perception is projection. You are seeing in the other. If you're admiring the other, you are seeing what you believe you do not have yourself, which is BS. If you really detest another person, you are actually detesting, things in them that you're not owning in yourself.
Right.
So I used to be so judgmental about liars. Oh my God, that would so trigger me, anything but do not lie to me, right? And I'd get so upset when people would lie to me. And then I had to really realize, wow, where am I not owning the liar in me? Why am I judging lying per se as something so terrible? And really see, well, if there was someone pointing a gun at my head, thank you, I reject the thought. But, if that were the case and they asked me, where are your kids? I'd lie the hell out of it, right? We all would. So, I think the biggest thing I learned, which really took a lot of stress out of my life and upset, was to realize that we're all just humans getting our needs met. Some of us do it in a more graceful way. Some of us are not so graceful about it, but it's not really personal. It's never about me. If someone's having a shitty day and I happen to be, opposite them, then they're going to project that onto me. And as we are all doing that, it makes me realize that relationships are beautiful mirrors, because, it also depends what I send out there.
Yes. I'm so glad that you brought that up, because that's something that, yes, I'll catch myself in the moment and be judging someone for something. I'm like, oh, right. That's that. Oh, right. That's
okay. Well, and no, it's again, it's a basic human need to judge. I mean, I always laugh at my very spiritual friends who say, oh no, I'd never judge. And I say, oh, nonsense. We all do. We have to, because it goes back to, our tiny little reptilian brain, where we have to decide, are you a friend or are you an enemy?
Right.
Are you going to eat me or are you going to support me, right?
Yes.
And as long as we realize where it's coming from, we're good. Just don't take that as such
right.
a guideline for life, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And that's a good thing for everyone to recognize, right? We are humans, and we're, we have evolved from the cave people times of, right. We're, like a tiny bit, right. But we're dealing with the fact that we, are still, operating from that space, in so many ways.
And that is a choice, right? And I really hope if there's one thing that we all take from this time that we spent together, is that trust your heart again. You know if things are right. You take time to to listen, to really be with yourself and trust it, really.
Right. Exactly. Have faith, right? It's all about the faith.
Yeah, and heart overhead. This
Mm-hmm.
one should be leading, not this one. If you're in your head, you're dead, Tony Robbins always says. That's right.
So I love it. You know, before we start wrapping up and actually talking about your meditation that I want to remind everyone of, I'd love it if you dive a little bit into the limiting beliefs you mentioned. So I know I think you said there were 16 that you talk about, but I just love it if you went into a few of those in the world of, right, hopefully people recognizing that these are all things that most of us, you know, believe on some level.
Well, it's usually, I mean, the reason why we're not aware of it is because the main programming happened before the age of 7. That's when our brain is most receptive. We're in the most relaxed brainwave state. So all that stuff is in there because we at that time didn't know how to filter, right? So it's nothing to be ashamed of, which takes me to the first one, which is shame and guilt. Mm-hmm. I am guilty. Oof. That's a huge limiting belief. Then shame and guilt is the one. Then what is it? I'm not beautiful enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy enough. Those I think are the top scores. I'm not lovable. That's a strong one. And just know that, you know, just one of them will mess up stuff.
Right.
I always like with my VIP clients, I clear them all. We just make sure that you have nothing running there. And before we leave, I'd love to share a quick way of shifting that. And that is, I call it the switch. My husband, Dr. Martina, developed this technique. And it goes into tapping and emotional freedom technique, but it combines many things more because in the palms of our hands, we have a lot of acupressure points. And so on the ridge here. And when we take our fist and we whack it into our open palm and then switch quickly, brain hemispheres, left and right, are syncing. Then if we connected with some breathing, we are actually balancing the meridians in our body. Now, because again, our conscious mind is real busy, we have access to our unconscious mind. So say you resonated with, I think I'm not smart enough, right? And you would now say, I love and accept myself, even if I believe I'm not smart enough. And breathe. And I love and accept myself when I now choose to know that I am more than smart enough. Okay, so now you've switched it in you. Now you could go to your fears, because you see now that the nice archaeology part starts. You'll notice, even just doing this, you'll say, oh, but what if, right? So a fear might come up. So then you would go here and you'd say, I love and accept myself with all the fears I may have around owning my smartness at my deepest level and from the very first time that I felt this way. And I now choose to release these fears and to step into my courage of knowing that I am more than smart enough. Now, if you were to just do those 2 exercises, do it for 3 days, do it for 10 days, you will notice a huge shift because you're doing a pattern interrupt. The moment you're noticing, you're consciously shifting. And that is transformation.
Mm-hmm. I love it. Thank you. I love it. Thank you for giving us something that everyone can walk away with and, practice on our own. And I love it. Thank you so much. This has been awesome. I love it all. And it's such important information. And so let's talk about your meditation. So there's a button below this video, everybody, that leads over to Joy's special offer, which is a meditation. So tell us about this.
Well, yeah, it's a brain training. Many of us connect with meditation, the idea that it's going to be real tedious and boring or whatever. So the good news about it is you don't have to do anything. You can download it onto your phone. You could listen to it in your lunch break. You could listen to it while you're commuting if you're not driving. You could listen to it while you go to sleep at night. As long as you have your phone on airplane mode, you could have it on barely audible, and you could use it as your nighttime story. And what it is I have created a meditation in this brain training that takes you into that state of what it feels like to have unshakable faith. And then I'm putting in all the good suggestions patterns that are aligned with your highest self to actually get into that state, and to train your brain to know what it feels like and to be in that state of having unshakable faith, because it takes practice, right? And with this brain training, you're strengthening those beliefs and those resources and brain patterns that you need to have unshakable faith. And I think in these times, that's something that we can all do a bit more with.
Excellent. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I know that it's super cost effective, everybody too. So you just click through.
We put the price as low as we could. And the other way that you could also listen to it is, that's how I love listening to brain trainings, is I have them running in the background when I work. So I have them on a barely audible level, because your unconscious mind is never asleep. And your unconscious mind can hear the brain trainings, even if you were to play them backwards and at a tremendous speed. So that's a nice way of getting that nice brain training and all those nice juicy informations in there in a really effortless way.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Yes. And everybody, again, that button is right below this video. So please go check it out and grab your meditation. And are there any last insights at all about anything that you'd like to share before we hop off?
Well, I love what you're doing. And I love that you're also on this mission of helping people feel empowered again. I think that's the biggest mistake we can make, is to believe we don't matter, because we really do. What if everybody believed they don't matter? What if that is actually what's going on right now? And what if we could just tap back into knowing that, hey, we do matter, every single one of us. So thank you so much for taking this time and spending it with us.
Absolutely. Thank you, Joy. I appreciate you being here. And everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to Joy's interview. And here, once again, is to our collective journey to harnessing our inner power and creating unstoppable self-confidence. Bye, everybody. Yeah. Awesome. Hey, everyone. And hey, fabulous Tammy. How's it going over there?
Oh, it's great over here. How about you, Ande?
Fabulous. I wanted to do a little wrap up about Joy Martina's interview, who was absolutely fabulous. I love this woman. I loved her way of being and her confidence and power, and she was just really incredible. So we talked a lot about intuition, which is coming up like left and right in this event. I swear, it's like, it's so prominent in so many people's talks. So we talked about, the different ways that we can figure out, right, like when is it intuition and when is it our monkey mind? And that's something that for me has definitely been challenging, in my own life, and just remembering, okay, just take a breath and, like take a moment and stop like diving into my head and all that stuff. And I think we mentioned on a past wrap up, Tammy, we talked about our trivia night at the bar, and how when we all actually just like went with that first gut instinct, that intuition, we kept getting those answers right. And I always go back to that as this, really great example of what intuition really is. It's just really, to me, it's just what is. And then our minds try to then like think, then we start thinking. And then that's not what is.
And then everything gets all messed up.
Yeah. So yeah, we talked about that a lot. And I totally get like, the more we dive into this topic of confidence, Tammy, and everyone watching, the more we learn to listen to that intuition and distinguish when it's intuition versus the monkey mind and actually follow it, how that can bring us more confidence in our life, right? Because if we start exercising that muscle of intuition and following the guidance of that intuition, then, I just created these great results, or, I felt so good, or felt so in alignment to move forward and take an action because I was listening to, that as opposed to my, crazy monkey mind. So I thought that was really key, and it keeps coming up over and over again. So a couple other things that Joy talked about. She talked about intuition and confidence related to money. And I really appreciated this because, it's, something that I love talking about, business and entrepreneurship and our relationship to money. And I know that you do too, Tammy. This is like a big topic of discussion, and how if we are listening to our guidance and our intuition, right, what kind of results we can create as opposed to when we don't. And she talked about like how she had some examples in her own life of not following the intuition and how it perhaps didn't end up quite how she might have wanted it on a monetary level. And, just recognizing that when that happens and how much that cost you monetarily or, physically or whatever in your life. And to, remember to listen to that much smarter voice than our mind. So those were some.
Those are two huge things. I think the money and the intuition can greatly affect our self-confidence. So I'm so glad.
Oh yeah. And then it's like, we've talked about before, Tammy, and this, it becomes a snowball effect, right? One thing leads to the next. And if you're listening to your intuition, right, and taking action, then that can increase your confidence, which can increase, let's say, your clients or your sales or money coming into your life or whatever, a better job coming into your life, something like that. And then you like, wow, that works out really well. Let's keep listening to this and let's keep following that guidance. And then just, it builds and builds and builds. So everybody, take, as usual, take that on. And another thing that Joy talked about was, and this actually is our challenge for the day, is meditation. And this is coming up again and again. Also, another common thread of this event is meditation, intuition, all sorts of stuff. But to take 20 minutes out of your day today, even if that monkey mind of yours tells you don't have the time, right? Like, find the time. You can carve out the time somewhere in your day. Maybe it's at the very end of your day or the beginning or something that you can, take a little chunk out of your day to do it. But, maybe it's silent for you. Maybe it's, listening to some kind of a meditation. Joy actually has, her offer is a brain training meditation. So maybe it's listening to that. But just take this 20 minutes and make the time for you. That ultimately, that's the most important thing. Breathe, right? Tap into you. Remember that you matter, remember that you're powerful, and then just share about it in the group. And, this might seem redundant, I think some of these challenges, some of them are very similar, but the more you do this stuff, you're going to get different epiphanies and different kinds of, outcomes out of doing these things and repetitively doing them over and over again. It will start to improve your level of confidence and all of that. So there's our challenge, everybody. Go over there.
Yeah, and you're just going to get better at it.
Yes, exactly. And then that'll increase your confidence.
Yes.
So there's our challenge, everybody. Head over to the group and post about your experience of the meditation today. And then, like I just briefly mentioned, so Joy has this really cool brain training meditation, and it's like $9.95 or something. So it's super cost effective. It's not, super high price. So we totally recommend you grab this if it's something that you're interested in. And she recommended listening. It's something you could listen to while you're going to bed, so that it's working on that, subconscious mind while you're even in a resting state. So even if it's really low, it is still affecting your state of mind and your, results that you can create. So that's it. So everybody click on that button below if you want to take Joy up on her offer of that really low price point meditation, and just let's all, take on the challenge and listen to our intuition and tap into how awesome we are. That's my thought. Any final thoughts, Tammy?
No, I just want to reiterate that everybody watching is awesome, and we appreciate you guys, and we just want to help you get the most out of what all of these experts have to offer here. So
yes, absolutely. Do it. Everybody listen to them over and over again, because there's some really great stuff in here. So we love that you're here with us and on this journey of confidence together. So we will see you on the next one, everybody. Take care.